Thank you so much for coming, everybody. My name is Ron Kamen, and tonight is the agenda of who will benefit from this program, why you might want to listen to me, what the promise is, where's the proof, the Climate Master Geo Designer software system, and why software analysis of your existing home and the opportunity that presented to you for Climate Master's geothermal system or any other system is very important to you. Well, if you're ready to implement, how to do it, and question and answers. And again, along the way, if you would please put your questions into the chat function or into the Q&A. Great. So who will benefit? So tonight really is for families who want to reduce their carbon footprint and save money on their heating, cooling, and hot water expenses, and leave a proud legacy for your grandchildren without unnecessary cost or complications. Why listen to me? Great question. So my name's Ron Kamen. I am the CEO of Earthkind Energy Consulting. For 35 years, I've been working with communities and individuals and families and governments on clean energy technology transformations that save them money and reduce your carbon footprint. I also walk the talk. I have a solar home office. I have heat pumps heating my home and office situation, a couple of electric cars that get me around. And basically, I'm a true believer. And not only am I a true believer, but I've actually saved a pile of money by making this transition. And part of the reason I'm here is to help you to do the same tonight. My clients, just to give you a sense, over the years now have saved a lot of money on energy savings, a lot of CO2, grabbed a lot of incentives. We're going to be talking about all three tonight. Some of the folks that I've worked with in the past, you may recognize some of these names, been around working with government clients of all different sizes, shapes, and fashions throughout the country, and particularly in New York State and elsewhere. A lot of different private clients, colleges, universities, nonprofits, helping them figure out how to make these transitions. And then a lot of for-profits as well, all different size companies, large, small, and in between. But tonight, really, just to give you a sense of a couple things people have said about me and why they like to work with me and some of the reasons that they do is, here's one example from the Bridge Authority, which is one of my long-term clients. And basically, I've advised them on a lot of different clean energy transformations over the years. This was a private school, the Oakwood Friends School, and they thought I was nuts at first because I told them that not only could they save money, not only could they get the solar that they always wanted, but they could do it, in their case, with no money down and have solar to eliminate 100% of their electric usage and net zero out their electric costs, reduce their carbon footprint from electricity. But tonight we're going to be talking about home heating and cooling systems. And in particular, I'm really thrilled to have my co-presenter here tonight, Mike Hammond. Mike has been involved in heating and air conditioning for a long time, over 30, 40 years, all aspects of the business, from working for someone to owning his own business. Since 2008, he's been a national trainer. So any question you have on geothermal, Mike will be able to answer. He knows it inside and out. He teaches the teachers and the other professionals. He travels the country presenting this information to everybody. So any questions that you have, Mike's the guy. We're going to attempt to answer them all tonight. So what's the promise of tonight? The promise basically is that you wake up on some Saturday morning, and while sipping your coffee, you open up your clean energy app on your device and you start to have a smile on your face as you see you virtually eliminated the carbon footprint of your home. Your energy bills are up to 70% less. 100% of your home's heating, cooling, and hot water is from the power of the earth underneath your feet. Your house is healthy and comfortable. You have no fossil fuels, no carbon monoxide, no explosive hazards, no and zero carbon emissions, and your children are happy and proud of you. That's the promise. Where's the proof? So first, heat pumps. Many folks don't realize that we all have heat pumps already. Our refrigerator and our freezer are our heat pump. They actually compress and expand a gas, and they take the heat out of the box and they dump it out in the coils in back of the refrigerator and the freezer. An air conditioner is also a heat pump, does that same compression and expansion, whether it's a wall air conditioner or a central air conditioner, does that same compression and expansion, taking heat out of a space and cooling and conditioning your air. An air source heat pump is an air conditioner, but instead of only providing air conditioning, it cools in the summer, but it also takes heat out of the air in the winter. And that compression and expansion is very effective about taking it out, not as effective as when you use the power of the earth under your feet. So in the summer, what happens is that you're dumping heat into the ground and bringing in cooler temperatures from the ground. But in the winter, you're reversing that process and taking the heat out of the ground and bringing it up into your home. The great part about doing that is, as we know, you go down a few feet, 4 feet in most part of the country in the world, and there's a constant temperature of about 50, 55 degrees because for billions of years, the earth has been absorbing that energy from the sun, and it's a big thermal battery under our feet with that constant temperature. So with geothermal, we're just grabbing that temperature with a loop that sends a fluid down and brings that temperature back up and then tempers it so that it cools or heats your building. And now I'm going to pass it over to Mike to talk about the different kinds of loops. Mike.
All right. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, there's a few different types of loops. We got horizontal loops, which you see over there on the left-hand picture in different configurations, usually buried, between about 4 to maybe 8 to 10 feet deep. Just depends on the area. And again, we'll talk a little more about the software coming up that's going to help so dictate how much pipe needs to go in the ground. And then on the right-hand picture, we got vertical loops, which are going to require a drill rig to come in order to drill these holes. And then we insert the U-bend pipe down those holes. And then they're manifolded together and brought back into the home. And then the next slide here, if there's an adequate body of water on the property, we can use a pond or a lake loop. Again, it needs to be within reasonable reach of the home. Otherwise, by the time we dig all the way out there, we could or maybe already have a horizontal loop in. And then another option, again, soil related and such, would be directional boring. A lot of you may have seen, directional bore equipment along highways and such doing for fiber optics and things like that. But we can utilize that equipment and actually directionally bore in our loops. So we can go up underneath other structures on the property, maybe a garage, some other things, even sometimes swimming pools, things like that, doing less destruction to the yard. And then we basically bore under, and then we can pop up, and then we pull the loop back through that directional bored hole. So again, there's different styles. The best one is, again, going to be the one that best fits your property, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the software. Turn it back over to Ron.
Thanks so much, Mike. So, okay. So we've got different types of systems. They cost money, obviously, but the great part, number of great parts, is we're going to talk about some of the incentives that you get. And part of what you get is actually a 26% federal tax credit. Now, always check with your tax advisor to find out whether or not you can take these tax credits. But if you're paying federal taxes, which most people do, you're able to grab a 26% federal tax credit on your next tax bill, which means that literally you get over a quarter of the system's cost back on your taxes by reducing your taxes, or get a check back from the federal government. So check with your tax advisor, but 26% of the cost can be paid for by federal tax credits. In New York State, there's something now called the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. And what that aims to do is to reduce the carbon output for the whole state from all different technologies, whether it's electricity or heating or transportation, by 85% but from 1990 levels. So all of this is happening. It's going to happen over the next 10, 20, and 30 years. And the great part is that New York State has a program, a New York's Clean Heat program, that's a collaborative effort between all the utilities in New York State and the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And what it does is it offers incentives that lets you install these systems much more cost effectively by reducing your costs. So we have two major incentives. We have the federal tax credit and we have a New York State program. And the New York State program, for those of you who are in central Hudson territory, which is where we're primarily been concentrating tonight, but every utility has this program in place. The average in a central Hudson utility territory for the average home is a $10,000 cash incentive to reduce your costs. So you take a $10,000 cash incentive off the top plus a 26% federal tax credit, and suddenly you've gotten the system cost down dramatically. And if you want to hear about Central Hudson's program and what they've been doing and why they're doing it, we have a great interview with Mark Sclafani of Central Hudson on the Awesome Earthkind podcast. That's at awesomeearthkind.com. Just look for Central Hudson, look for Mark, and you'll find a great audio podcast about Central Hudson and why they're doing these incentives and what the incentives are for you. But one of the things that also gets done is if you sign up for a free assessment, part of what happens is a climate master installer will come and specifically identify the incentives that you qualify for and will help you get them as well. All right, so here's an example, just in case you think that geothermal is only for small houses or whatever else. This is an example of 127 affordable housing apartments in Rockaways down in Queens. And in this multifamily complex, the air conditioning costs are only $10 a month. That compares to over $100 a month for a similar apartment elsewhere. And the heating cost is 10% less than natural gas. So heating and cooling with dramatic savings from geothermal in this large apartment complex. But the great thing about this technology is it's available for any type of home, whether you have a large home, a small home, you're in a rural area, suburban area. If you have a single family residence, or even if you have a multifamily residence, there's the ability to do geothermal technology and to get some great opportunity to reduce your costs and to improve your comfort. So before you do geothermal, maybe notice all these shocking energy bills as the prices keep going up, energy rates keep going up. Every home is responsible for about a ton of carbon per year just from your heating system. You have very little control over these energy prices. If your kids are like mine and they're concerned about the global climate issues, they're very fearful about the future and what's going to happen. But when you install a geothermal system, you shock-proof your bills. You get up to a 70% reduction in your heating, hot water, and cooling costs. You're doing it with zero carbon emissions. You feel like you're doing your part to help make the world a better place. And your kids and grandkids will be proud of you and the work that you're doing. And all this without having to figure it out by yourself, without having to rely on salespeople for information, without being unsure about what you're doing, without getting lost in the technicalities or being overwhelmed by the complexities, without having to realize that you're saving money then with incentives and financing. There's a bunch of different ways you'll be presented with those opportunities, and you don't have to worry about leaving money on the table or choosing the wrong technology. And the problems get handled for you, which is a wonderful thing. So the simple part is just choose your path to geothermal, lots of different options, and help save the planet. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the software, and no matter which installer or what program you choose or which manufacturer you ultimately go for, one of the things you want to make sure they do is really analyze your particular home to figure out where you're using heating and cooling and hot water, how much energy you're using, model that energy so that you can then make sure that you look at all the options and the alternatives effectively and know, based on your situation, what your opportunity is, how much it will cost you, and what your savings will be. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Mike.
All right. Again, thanks, Ron. Uh, right before we actually get into the nitty gritty of the software, I want to talk about a great product that we do have, which is our Trilogy, our 45, up to a 45 EER. It's a great, great product. It's the most efficient geothermal heat pump we offer. It's variable capacity. Actually, I've had one in my home now for almost 7 years, and unbelievable comfort. I went from even just a 2-stage product, which has great comfort as well. But living with the variable technology, it's just constant comfort. Once you set the temperature, I mean, it just maintains that temperature. The unit also makes all the hot water production. Again, again, using the software we're going to talk about here coming up shortly, modeling your home with that so that we know how that unit's going to operate within that home. This unit totally load matches to the house. So as the temperature goes up and down, the unit just ramps up and down in order to maintain that perfect comfort. Very quiet and very comfortable unit made right here in the United States. So again, great product. Can't speak enough about it. Again, load matches, heat cools, great thing. Again, variable airflow, variable compressor, and on the loop side, even we have variable water flow. So everything is varying in order to make a constant comfort in the home. Again, it's kind of like throttling your gas pedal. You know, it's kind of give you just a little bit of an analogy versus just a gas pedal that went from a high, medium, kind of low kind of setting. I mean, this is just fully variable like your gas pedal in your car, so that we get that constant comfort within the home. And when you live with one of these products, you can actually see it when you look at the operating reports. They're going to be a part of the software that comes with the unit. So you can actually see as the outdoor temperature changed, you can see as your compressor sped up or slowed down in order to maintain that comfort level. And again, making hot water at a very high efficiency as well. Again, here's just showing you the unit, what it kind of looks like. It's an all-in-one package unit that's going to be inside your home or possibly where your existing, if it's a retrofit, you know, where your existing furnace might go, this would replace that in that location. But again, it's going to be, you're going to want to get that estimate from that contractor, because the whole system, this has to work with the ductwork. We need to make sure all this is going to work hand in hand, and so that you can achieve those high efficiencies. So it's all kind of an all package when it gets installed, as far as the loop in the ground, the ductwork. We need to make sure all that's going to work effectively together. I also mentioned again with this unit, it makes all the hot water. There is backup electric elements in there just in case there's an issue, but this tank is super insulated, kind of like an igloo cooler, just as a little bit of an analogy. It's got between 3 to 4 inches thick foam insulation. It's an all plastic tank, so it's not going to rot like some of the steel tanks out there. And again, the unit's constantly communicating with this tank in order to make hot water, and it can get with the program. As far as recovery, typically it's on par with a gas-fired tank water heater as far as being able to recover. So it's a very effective hot water tank in combination with the unit. But again, we need to make sure when the contractor comes out, they'll need to analyze again your hot water needs for that home, so that we can make sure we get the proper size tank. We do offer it in up to a 105-gallon tank from a 50 to a 105. And there's just showing again our controls. We call it our iGate controls here. So it's a Wi-Fi thermostat that's going to communicate with the unit. No other controls will work with this unit. We do also offer duct zoning that couples these thermostats, so that again, if you will have multiple zones in your home or want to have multiple zones in your home, again, working with your contractor to see the ability to do that for your structure works very well. And again, with that Wi-Fi connection, as I mentioned, we can look at operating reports similar to that screen in the back there in the picture, showing how the unit operated based on the outdoor air temperature. And again, you can control from the thermostat, like any Wi-Fi stat, from your phone or a tablet. And again, these products, as Ron mentioned earlier, Geothermal can fit almost anywhere. So, I mean, we just have to look and be creative. As I mentioned earlier, all the different loop styles. There's not one best loop. It's a loop that I can best put in your location. So we need to look at the contractor would need to come out and analyze your home and see what best fits. And also maybe you've got room for a large horizontal loop, but we want to confine it in a smaller area, so we'll do a vertical loop. So we need to address all those different needs. That's where that contractor will come out and talk with you and see what's going to best fit your home. So any one of those loops put through our GeoDesigner software will work effectively. Now, one key thing before we get into the GeoDesigner software that also this contractor that comes out to do an analysis of your home, they need to do a heat loss, heat gain calculation, because that is critical going into this GeoDesigner software so that we can determine how much loop needs to go in the ground, but also give you a very good analysis of how much this system is going to be able to save you in operating costs compared to your existing system, because we can also model in the software your existing system that's already in the home, and then going to geothermal, how much potential savings you can have executing geothermal. So again, this software is a key part of that. And again, we're gonna take a look at this nice little home here in our program. We got just a little sample here. And we're looking at, again, obviously in New York. And one of those key things, as circled or put in that red box there, is our load calculations. They're going to calculate how many BTUs your house is losing or gaining on a design degree day. And again, your contractor will know about that, but again, must do that, not just kind of these guesstimates and things like that. Again, garbage in, garbage out. So we want a good load calculation done on your home. The other key thing, obviously, if we're going to talk about operating cost, is we need to have good information about your true cost for your utilities. So obviously, when we're talking about geothermal heat pumps, we're talking about using electricity. So we need to get a good, in your area from your power company, what you're actually truly paying. So the ideal thing we want to do, that contractor, is to take a look at some of your electric bills and get your true cost per kilowatt. The same thing for any other oil or gas that you might already be heating with. We want to get your true cost, because a lot of times there's delivery fees and other things in there that are part of your true costs. So we need to make sure we're modeling those costs for your utilities properly, so that again you're getting an accurate summary of what it's going to cost to heat and cool and produce hot water for your home. And in the software, we can model up to 3 different systems. In this scenario here, we have our Trilogy system, as I mentioned, the most highest efficiency geothermal heat pump out there. And then we've got the existing oil-fired with the central air conditioner. And then we're looking at a high-efficiency variable speed air source product as the third option in this scenario. And again, when you pick one of those systems, you can actually then model different loop types. Here's showing a vertical loop. And then we can look at the operating cost of that with that vertical loop for just the Trilogy system, a breakdown for both heating, cooling, and the hot water. Again, in this scenario, doing 100% of the hot water. And again, it also gives us our loop details up there, how much loop has to go in the ground in order to achieve the efficiencies that we're looking for there, and for the operating parameters that we're looking for. So again, very important that this is done so that we know how much pipe has to go in the ground from the contractor side, but also so that we can show you the operating costs of the system. It gives you a nice breakdown here. And then this is showing our existing fuel oil system with a 14 SEER air conditioner. Again, showing a breakdown of that cost with the heating cost there, and then our cooling cost, and then the hot water cost, again, based on that oil-fired hot water heater that's in there existing. So there's our total cost. And then you can actually you get a final report. You can actually look at all 3 systems side by side and see what your your yearly heating cost, cooling cost, hot water costs, and then your average monthly cost comparison. So again, it's a great software, and it's a must. And as Ron mentioned before, obviously we want you to go with Climate Master, but even if you're looking at any other competition out there, they all should provide you. All manufacturers have very similar software in order to model systems. And again, you want to make sure your contractor is giving you a load calculation uh, that's part of this in this software. Because again, just saying I'm going to put in a 4-ton system without backing it up can be very dangerous. And then you may not get the savings and the comfort that you're really looking for. So it's very important that it's a truly modeled system for your home. So can't say that enough.
Great. Thanks
Back,
so much, Mike. Really appreciate it. So folks, if you want just a simple summary of where Mike looked at this particular model house, what you see is that with the Trilogy system, a monthly cost of about $125 a year. Compare that to the air source cost, an air source heat pump of about double that. And then with the existing situation, really triple that. And what you can see is over a year, how much you could save, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And again, whatever you decide to do, the first thing is to make sure that someone's properly modeling your house, because depending upon how your home is oriented, how much insulation you have in your walls and your ceilings, how many windows you have and doors you have, and how your heating system is set up, your house is going to be unique and different from everyone else's in terms of that heating and cooling load. And you want to make sure that the system is sized properly so that you're not oversizing it, which a lot of guys do. They just come in and they're like, oh, yeah, well, you need about this amount, or undersizing it. So then you have issues when you go forward and you don't have enough heating in the winter or cooling capacity in the summer. So whatever you do, get your home modeled, know how the cost structure is for your home today, so that then you can really compare your options effectively and know what you're getting into and what the savings are going to be by choosing whatever option you decide to go with. All right. So if at the end of this you decide that you are ready to implement, what you need to know is this. So first, book a free assessment. We're going to give you the chat function right now. And by being here tonight, you get to download a $500 gift certificate when you sign up for your free certificate. When you sign up for your free assessment, that's $500 off the cost of the system, in addition to the 26% federal tax credit, and in addition to the utility incentives. So there's an added incentive by taking your time tonight to come here, worth $500. And then here's how you go. We're going to put this into the chat as well, but basically go to geothermal.climatemaster.com/free.assessment. You'll be able to sign up and have someone come out and model your home to identify what your existing costs are and what your options can be for going forward with Climate Master or any other system that you decide you want to model. And then just get ready to take your next step to a clean energy future. So when you sign up for your free assessment, you should be contacted within 2 to 5 days from a local installer who will then schedule to come to your house and go through all this whole process with you. If by any chance you don't, something slips through the crack, this is Michael Murphy's direct email. Michael Murphy runs this program across the country, and he will be available and make sure that you get your situation taken care of and that someone pays attention to you. So take down Michael Murphy's information as well. Questions and answers. Okay, so here we go. Folks, if you would type your questions into the chat function and or into the question and answer function. And we have some questions already, but if you would pipe them into the Q&A or into the chat. And the first question that we have is somebody looked at the website and they found that the Trilogy variable speed system is there. and they want to know, how does that compare to another option, which is a two-stage system? So, Mike, would you care to answer that question, please?
Great question. Again, the Trilogy being fully variable speed will again totally load match against the house. Now, again, a two-stage product is great. As I mentioned in my own home, I went from a two-stage to this variable speed technology. So it's again a two-stage is a great product as well. But again, it's just going to have two fixed speeds, if you will, versus a variable Trilogy product is fully variable. So the fully variable is obviously is higher efficiency. The two-stage product is going to be up to a 30 ER versus a 45 ER. So
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. All right, second question. How long does it take to install one of these systems?
that's a great question. It's going to vary, and again, it's very important. Once you get that, talk to that contractor that comes out and does an analysis on your home. You'll get a better idea of that. Generally, in a retrofit, the first part of the step is going to be getting the loop into the ground, whatever that configuration is, and depending what that is, and obviously the size of your home. Is it one heat pump or multiple heat pumps that are going to be in there? That's also going to kind of dictate the time frame. But generally, it's going to probably be done in two steps: get the loop in the ground, and then they'll come back and actually install the heat pump. And again, so this might on average, a retrofit, if it's a fairly simple home, this might be a 3 or 4 day project. But generally, that's just to give you a real rough guideline. But again, talk to that contractor that's going to come out, because every home can be a little unique, and it's better to get a better feel when they're actually take a look at what you have out there. And obviously, if you got to redo some duct work, obviously that can add into the timing as well.
Great. So one of the questions is the Climate Master program available in Connecticut?
As far as the
is there in other words, can somebody who in Connecticut one of these systems, and will there be somebody who will contact them after tonight's call?
Oh, we can definitely help that the person out there in Connecticut, as far as getting somebody to take a look at their house and see what we can do for them. So yeah, definitely reach out, and we can help you out with that.
Yeah. So no matter no matter where you are in the country, actually, Climate Master has a representative that can help you. And again, I'm going to put into the chat function the contact information for how to get a free assessment, and then you could just click on that. And in addition, we'll also put in Michael Murphy's information just in case you have any problems and you don't get someone coming right away. One of the questions is, once somebody's yard is all dug up, will the contractor fix their yard and make it all nice afterwards?
Oh, that's a great question. Again, kind of in a nutshell, again, that's going to be up to the the heating contractor you're dealing with and what they've prescribed. Typically, that will be in their quote. Whether or not they're going to restore the yard or just rough backfill. I can tell you, in my past as a contractor in northern Indiana, when I put loops in, I put in my my quoting and invoices and such that it's just rough backfill. But again, it's all kind of what that particular contractor does. Some of them may do that, or maybe landscaping by others. So again, definitely make sure you find that out, with the contractor that you're going to be dealing with, what state they're going to leave, the area of the yard that they're going to have to disturb in order to put the loop in, and what kind of condition it's going to be in. So it really vary on that contractor. So it's kind of hard to say just one way or the other.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of the things you want to cover with your contractor when you're sitting down and talking with them about what they're doing and where they're going to put the loop, and then how they're going to leave the yard after they're done. Most contractors will leave it as kind of flat, basically put the dirt back where it was, and then it's up to you to plant seed or whatever else. The great part is that once you get this installation done, and then you do whatever landscaping, planting the lawn, growing lawn seed, or whatever else you're going to do as a landscaping piece on top of it, nobody is going to know that you are using the power of the earth to heat and cool your home. And the only thing you're going to really know is that you have this fossil fuel free, very efficient heating system. It's 5 times more efficient than any kind of burning fossil fuel system because it's taking that energy from the earth and then just using it to heat and cool your home. So you're going to have an efficient, healthy, clean system, and nobody's even going to know that it's coming from underground your feet. All right, a couple more questions here. I have hot and cold spots in my house. Will this system make it better, Mike?
That's a great question. Again, if you already have existing hot and cold spots, that's something you definitely want to bring up to the contractor that's going to come out and analyze your home, because there may be ductwork issues, or if it's hydronic heating, it may be some other issues there in that distribution, but those need to be looked at. One nice thing, again, with heat pumps, you do end up with longer run times, so it is a more even, consistent heat than traditionally some other types of heats that are on off a lot more often. So a lot of times, in some cases, that may take care of some of those minor, if you will, hot and cold spots, but they really need to be looked at by that contractor when they come out, and really to make sure that ductwork is sufficient for that space.
Really good point. So if you have some issues, you should go over those with your contractor when they're there and let them know that you have a situation where you have cool air or hot air or whatever the situation is in particular rooms, whatever you're unsatisfied with, because it may not be from your system, your heating system, but it could be from your heating system, or it could be because you need a little insulation here, or there's just not enough heating getting into that particular space, heating or cooling. So Mike is exactly right. You want to take a look at all that. All right. So if I was looking at replacing my water heater, is that something I should wait on or and look at this system first, or what should they do, Mike?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. If you're not in like the water heater's leaking, it's in a very quick state that you need to do something with it. It's probably a good idea to wait until you fully analyze if you're going to go with geothermal, because that may change. Obviously, the type of water heater you might be using. If you go with the Trilogy, for instance, you're going to want to utilize that iGate Smart Tank that we showed you pictures of. So I would definitely, if you're looking into geothermal, I would, if your water heater is not on its last leg and leaking, then I would probably put that off until I made the decision about putting geothermal in before I change that water heater out.
Yeah, really good point. So, folks, if you can and your system's not busted and leaking all over, if you can wait and you're going to go with geothermal, it would be great opportunity to do your heating, cooling, and your hot water. And that's the great thing about this Trilogy system. Unlike some other ones where you only get heating and cooling out of it, the Trilogy system is a true triple system that gives you the hot water as well as your heating and cooling, and that's relatively unique, and that's one of the reasons why I particularly like Climate Master's Trilogy system. All right, another question. Um, Whoops, here we go. Can the Trilogy be used on well water?
Again, a good question. Right now, the Trilogy is only designed to go on a closed loop system. So those different loop configurations that we showed you, it has to go on a closed loop. We cannot utilize an open loop. So if somebody wanted to go open loop, we would need to utilize one of our other products, like one of our high efficiency 2-stage products out there.
All right. All right, another question. I have a geothermal system now, but can I still get the tax credit and rebate if I replace my system?
Yes, you can. At least the federal tax credit. But again, you want to check out all the other incentives, but as far as how they go with replacing existing geothermal. But as far as the federal tax credit, I can tell you I've had many customers that have older geothermal systems and they need to replace that because it's 25 years old and it's starting to fail. And so they'll put a brand new geothermal heat pump in, and they can get a tax credit for the costs of putting the new system in, as long as, again, it all fits in with what's can be considered in that federal tax credit.
Wonderful. Always check with your tax advisor, though, folks,
Yes.
because everybody's tax situation is a little bit different, and you should make sure you check with your tax advisor and double check and everybody's comfortable and going with that. But Mike's point is very well taken. If you're one of the average Americans who pay taxes, and you have a system that's there, and you get this new system, you should be able to take that 26% federal tax credit. All right. Spoke with someone who said everything they need to know about their house, the size, their equipment can be done off the internet. They don't even have to come out or do any sort of analysis. What do you think about that, Mike?
Uh, I would be very skeptical of that because just looking at your house on Google Maps, you don't really get a full 3D visual of like you walk around somebody's home. I can't peek my head up in the attic and see how much insulation's up there. And that's really truly what a contractor coming out to give you a true analysis of your home. And in order to do a heat loss calculation, we need to look at it. There are programs out there that will do kind of a quick load calc, but they're all based on tax records, and kind of the age of your home, what typically you might have for R values and things like that, the insulation value of the home. So again, that's really like throwing a dart at the wall. Are we really hitting the right target or not? And so I would, it may give you a wild ballpark that could be way off. So I would personally recommend that again, somebody comes out and does a full analysis of your home, looking over, piking their head up in the attic, looking at the R value of the attic insulation, all these things that they're going to need to do walk around. You can't see the ductwork from Google Maps. I can't see the distribution. I can't see even all the windows that are in the home. Typically, we may have a street view, but we don't typically see other sides of the home. And there's a lot of variables that go into that load calculation. And just looking at square footage and things like that we can see online is just not going to be sufficient enough. I would never, I've been previously in business myself, and I would never give somebody a quote just off of a Google Maps like that. It can be very, very dangerous from the contractor view, as well as not giving the homeowner really what they need.
All right. So, of the 4 different types of loops that you showed, which is the best?
The best one is any one of the 4, actually. It's which one, because again, any of them modeled in that GeoDesigner program, properly based off that load calculation that goes in there, they're all going to perform within probably $20, $30 a year of one another. The best loop is the one that I can put in to a person's property for the least cost that fits that property needs. If I dig down a foot and I'm hitting solid rock, well, we're not going to probably be putting in horizontal loops. But if I got a lot of land, horizontal loop in a lot of places is more economical than a vertical loop. But if the homeowner also has a yard they really don't want disturbed, then maybe a vertical or a directional bore might make more sense. But again, using that software, we put the right amount of pipe in the ground in any of those configurations. They will all work very, very efficiently. It's just which loop, the one that makes the most sense is the one that best fits your property. So.
And of the 4, which one? So is the least cost the one where you just drop a coil into a pond? Is that like the least cost one? And then a horizontal would be second, and then a directional would be third, and the most expensive but the least land area is just direct vertical drilling. Is that kind of the order, Mike? Or
That's fairly typical, but it does vary in different markets. So I wouldn't say that 100% hard and fast rule, but generally speaking, yeah, the horizontal loop, in most cases, if we can excavate pretty easily in the yard, that's usually second to the pond loop, because the pond loop, again, all we got to do is excavate to the pond, and then we have coils, or we have coils that are fanned out into kind of slinking mats, depending upon what the contractor would like to do there. As far as there's a couple different pond loop styles that would go in. That's typically the least cost of the pond loop, then the horizontal. And then a lot of cases, the directional boring then would be third, and then the vertical. But there's, again, it all goes down to your different area, and that's important about getting that contractor out there to take a look at it and see what's going to make the most sense for your property.
all right. Another question. So I got solid rock. Is that good, bad, not good? How you gonna put in a geothermal system with solid rock underneath me?
Hey, that's a great question. Actually, rock is a great thermal conductivity as far as moving energy to and from, as far as the earth. It has a very good high conductivity rate. Just think about, you have a rock that sits out in the sun. If you go out there just after the sun goes down, you touch that rock, it's still hot or warm if it's been out in that sun. So it can store and transfer quite a bit of energy. So, a vertical loop, obviously, if we're in a rock area like that, it's going to make them go of probably the only sense as far as installing the loop. And again, people typically drillers that are in that area, they're used to drilling in rock, so it's not usually going to be any kind of an issue. They're set up for whatever that kind of rock formation is, and we're going to drill that hole through that rock. We're going to put that U bend in, then they grout that hole, so we got conductivity between that pipe and that rock, and that's going to be a great performing loop.
So one of the things that I understand is actually rock is great, but sandy soils not so much because when you're trying to drill into sandy soil, it keeps filling in the hole. Is that
Well,
about right?
you can have that, and the other thing with sand, depending upon the saturation level, you just think about water moves through sand. So unless it's staying there, dry sand doesn't have a very good conductivity rate, but moist sand, would. But as you said, trying to drill in there, generally they've got to put, in the top layer. If you got a little layer of sand, they usually have to put some casing in order to hold that sand back. When they're drilling those vertical loops. But yes, that can definitely be a lot harder to drill in than rock as far as keeping the formation.
All right. So one of the things folks should know is that in New York State and many other states, but in New York in particular, you can go down 500 feet without getting additional permits. And that 500-foot hole just under the footprint of any building, whether it's a small home or a large home, those 500-foot holes, when sized properly, can handle the heating, cooling, and hot water for a building up to 25 stories or more. So that power of the earth with just those 500-foot holes can heat, cool, and hot water for any building, any home really, and any building up to 25 stories. It's being done all around the state. So it's a pretty incredible technology. And for those of you who know, St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan is actually heated and cooled in hot water from a geothermal system where they drill 2,000 feet into the bedrock under Manhattan. So if you want to see a really cool geothermal system and you're in Manhattan, decide to go by St. Patrick's. Amazing, amazing technology. All right, another question. Mike, how much should this system cost?
Oh man, that's a good question. Again, I have to defer that to the contractor coming out, doing all those proper steps we've already talked about, and then providing a quote. Again, somebody that just kind of does a drive-by quote, that can be pretty dangerous. They're liable to just throw a very high number at it, trying to cover. Whereas if they go out and do a full analysis, you're going to have a very much more accurate from the contractor standpoint as well, how much cost they're going to have into it, and then they can determine, what that cost is going to be to the consumer. So again, just trying to come up with, just a number off the top of the head can be very dangerous. And I would highly recommend, again, get a good firm quote from somebody that comes out and does the analysis. They should do a manual J, they should do a geo designer, and again, they also should be looking at how that loop's going to get installed, whether they have to consult with a driller so that they know what they're dealing with out there. So all those key things, and then obviously if there's something that needs to be addressed on the distribution, that should be all part of that as well. When I talk about that, I'm talking about the ductwork or hydraulic piping, depending upon how we're heating that space.
Great points, folks. So a couple things. One is, again, depends upon your situation, how many square feet you have, whether you got existing ductwork that can be used, if you've got any issues that with comfort that you want to have addressed at the same time, that's a factor. How big the system, making sure the system is sized properly with the right software analysis that models your existing home cost and usage so that you know and how that compares to your options. And then They'll also give you a customized analysis with how much the utility incentives will be, because each utility in New York State and elsewhere has different incentives. So you got to check on what the incentives will be from the utility. And then you check with your tax advisor to see about the 26% federal tax credit. And then you net it all out and you see what your savings are and you see what your costs are and you see what your payback will be. So get that custom analysis. It makes total sense. And you won't really know until someone comes out and does your house in particular. Okay, another question. What happens if there's a high water table?
Actually, that can be a good thing, actually, because as I mentioned a minute ago about with this the saturated sand, it's a better conductivity as far as moving heat. Just one real quick analogy. Just think about it's 32 degrees outside today, and I put my hand out there. Yeah, it's kind of cold. I have my hand in that 32-degree air. I go to stick my hand in water that's right there at the freezing point. I'm not going to leave my hand in that water very long. If you've ever stuck your hand in some ice cold water, you don't want to leave it in there very long. It's going to go numb on you. It's moving that heat that much faster than the air. So it gives you an idea the power of water as far as moving BTUs. And so having a high water, again, as long as the driller can deal with that when they're drilling and keep that hole open, which there's, again, a good driller out there has a lot of different ways they can do that with different mixing of drilling muds and such in order to keep those holes open. Moisture in that hole is a perfect thing.
Great. Another question. What type of maintenance is required for geothermal systems, and do you have to change the fluid in vertical loops?
Oh, great question. In the closed loop system, no. It's once it's properly installed and properly filled with water and typically an antifreeze solution mixed in with the water, that water is used over and over. Again, it does not generally have to be changed. It's not usually something that needs to be flushed out and refilled in any kind of a cycle, as long as, again, everything's done properly on the forefront. As far as maintenance on the heat pumps, the big thing, like any HVAC equipment, is changing the air filter on a good regular basis, so that, again, we maintain good airflow through the heat pump. And it's just like any other system. Working with your installing contractor, maybe on a seasonal, come take a go through the unit and just make sure it's still performing the way it should be. So a seasonal checkup is not a bad idea, just like any other system out there. No different than an air source product. Just a little annual checkup, but the big thing is just keep your filter clean from a homeowner standpoint.
And folks, that's a great thing no matter what type of system you currently have or where you go. If you've got any sort of moving air, you want to change those filters, because otherwise what happens, a lot of folks don't even realize that they have filters in different parts of their home. Those filters get clogged. As they get clogged, that builds up pressure. The pressure not only makes the system work harder and costs you more money, it also means that the system is more likely to break down from all that increased tension. And in addition, it's building up mold and mildew and other really nasty things, bacteria, on those filters that are not good for your health. So you definitely want to think about and have built into your annual plans, changing those filters, like twice a year, Mike? Is that good? Once, twice?
Yeah, generally the filters that we use on our products, they're generally last at least 6 months. So again, every household's a little different as far as pets and things like that could be contributing to more filter changes. But generally speaking, every 6 months to once a year, depending upon your household. So once you get the system in, you kind of just need to monitor that, especially that first year, maybe every couple months, take a good look at that filter, see if it's going to need to be changed. But generally about 6 months to a year.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, we've reached our hour and we answered everyone's questions. If you have any more, just stick them into the chat real quick, because otherwise we're going to end this session with a thank you to everyone who came. Again, I put into the chat how to get that free assessment. If you just click on that link geothermal.climatemaster.com/free-assessment. You will get a free analysis done of your home with a customized software analysis of your existing heating and cooling cost and hot water and what your options are. And you can let folks know, take a look at the Climate Master Geothermal Trilogy system or any of their other systems, or take a look at some other ones if you're evaluating air source heat pumps versus the geothermal. And I guess one thing, Mike, on the comparison between air source heat pumps and geothermal, do you want to comment at all about that? Because I had some recent enlightenment about some of those issues that come up with air source that aren't there for geothermal.
Oh yeah, I would just mention that the technology that's available in air source products, once you put that same technology in a piece of geothermal equipment, it's just that much more efficient. So you're not going to get anything more efficient than geothermal. You may get some people out there claiming that something is more efficient or just as efficient. But when you look at like our Trilogy product, essentially we're putting that variable technology into a geothermal product, and it's just that much more efficient than an air source product. Obviously, we have also a few more incentives than some of the air source products out there. And just my analogy a minute ago, when I stick my hand in that 32-degree air, it's cold, but did it feel as cold as putting my hand in that 32-degree water? So that gives you kind of the benefit of geothermal right there. Just as a quick analogy, we can move a lot of BTUs through water, and that's what we do in that closed loop system, is moving those BTUs to and from that earth. And as Ron mentioned earlier, that's your power plant, and putting that geothermal loop in there, and it's going to outlast even this heat pump that you put in now. That loop's going to be there for other heat pumps that are going to go into that building later. Once that other that existing geothermal you put in currently goes away, after it wears out, you're going to have that power plant that's in your yard that you can't see after you replanted that grass, and you're just going to enjoy those benefits over and over. So,
Really good point. And those
air
pipes
source
from the
product sits
geothermal.
outside, and so you're going to eventually just where we have everything. Generally, most cases have everything inside the building. So again, there's a lot of other benefits. I know some customers that's one of the bigger reasons they went geothermal, is because they didn't have to have that outdoor unit rattling next to their deck. So that's another good point of the geothermal technology.
Yeah, really good point. So air source heat pumps, interesting, great technology, again, like an air conditioner, but it's sitting outside. So being that it's outside, it's going to be subject to impacted by the weather. And if it's really hot outside, you got 100 degrees or 90 degrees or whatever it is that you're fighting to try to cool. And if it's really cold outside, you're doing the same thing with whatever the degree temperature is out, 30, 20, 10, 0, minuses, whatever. Whereas if you have a geothermal system, you're starting with 50 or 55 degrees, and clearly you're at a much higher advantage. And then, as Mike said, instead of having your equipment outside subject to the weather, it's all inside, which means that it's going to last longer and have less stress. So you have two big advantages. You don't have the big swings in temperature that you're fighting with an air source heat pump, and you don't have the weather conditions beating up your equipment outside. And then, of course, you also don't have the noise that's outside from an air source heat pump. Now it's very quiet because it's a very quiet pump inside your house using the power of the earth. And with that, I would like to thank everyone. Thank you, Mike Hammond, for coming on. Thank you, folks, for
Thank you.
coming. If you would, again, just go to the chat. You can click on that geothermal.climatemaster.com/free/free-assessment. Get your free assessment, get your $500 discount. If you have any issues and you don't get a call, you sign up, you don't get a call within 3 to 5 days, please email Michael Murphy, mmurphy@climatemaster.com, and he'll make sure that you get taken care of. Thank you, everyone. As always, it's a pleasure. Look forward to seeing a lot more transitions to clean technology, which is where we got to go. And great part is that the earth has amazing, amazing power in it. All the forces of nature do, and we've now got the technology to capture that and to save money doing it, and these incentives across the board to help you make that transition.